Hi, welcome back to my human design series. I'm Jen Greiner of Divine Vitality, and I hope you've enjoyed parts 1 and 2. And today, as we get into part 3, we're going to talk about the spleen and the sacral in terms of my design. So I'm really excited to jump back into this. So let's check out my chart again. So starting with the spleen, it's defined, it's colored in. So I have fixed, reliable access to my instinct and my intuition. It's all about survival. If you think about the reptilian brain, the caveman, those are all ways to think about the spleen. It corresponds with our immune system. So, really, this has a lot to say about someone's immune system. With my defined spleen, I'm in pretty good health. I have a really good sense of well being, partly thanks to my defined spleen. So, with it defined, it means I can also be spontaneous, highly intuitive, right? I have that fixed, reliable access to my intuition. Whether I choose to listen to it or not is another story. So, with the defined spleen, we're designed to react to life in the spur of the moment. It functions in the now. So, while I don't have a splenic authority because it's a hierarchy and I have a defined solar plexus, so that's my authority, especially in my quantum design. When we pick apart my design, and I'm not sure I've talked about this yet, I do this with my individual clients because it helps so much when it comes to coaching and counseling and all of this. We pull apart the conscious the conscious and the unconscious. So I am an unconscious splenic projector. So I do like to honor my spleen as a tool in my decision making. We'll talk more about my emotional authority in part 4 when we talk about the solar plexus and the root. But because I'm an unconscious splenic projector, I like to tap into what is my instinct? What is my, it's instinct is different from gut, right? The sacral, when we get there, we'll talk about that gut feeling. This is instinct, instinctual, that fight, flight, right? That fawn, what you choose to do in that moment. So, with that, it helps me be able to scan my environment. What is this? Is this good or bad? With my strongest sense being outer vision, I'm also really able to catch a vibe. To really enter a place and be like, oh, this is good or this is not good. So it's really cool how my design works like that. So it's important for me to pay attention to my instincts, to all of my senses. Sometimes when I can disengage from my intuition, because they work in tandem, they're also separate. My instinct and taste can warn me, right? So I don't have the gate of the now in the throat, but I really do function in this instinctual moment. The spleen is also where deep seated fears lie. So, another thing that I do one on one is look at the gates that we have undefined to make sure that we're not absorbing that energy, falling into those fears, into that shadow and victim energy that they can hold. Even myself, even though I have a defined spleen, I still can be conditioned. I can still fall into deep seated fears of what I am not, but also of what I am, right? So when we look at each center, it's the gates that we have defined. That is how that center expresses itself, right? I talked about this back in, I believe it was part 1, when I talked about the throat, because I only have one gate. That's my only voice. That's my only expression of that center. My mind, I have these 2 gates. With my spleen, yes, I have these 3 gates along with being defined. So it's really important that I know what I am. So there's also an aspect of overprotectiveness. So it's important to challenge and adopt realism, especially because I can get lofty and fall into fantasy. It's one of my shadows. It's important for me to be really realistic. Like, what is this? So let's take a look at the three gates that I have there. The first gate is 28. And you can see, I have a lot of unconsciousness in my spleen. So it's not in my forward conscious awareness. I've worked really hard in the past few years to bring the unconscious to the conscious. That's why I like to practice playing with a splenic authority. What is my spleen telling me? Because consciously, I am very aware of my emotions. We'll talk more about this, right? You see, all my gates are conscious, they're all black, whereas all of my gates here are unconscious. Sure, one is also conscious. But gate 28, unconscious, it is the gate of preponderance of the great, of the game player. This is all about playing life, right? Living life as the game. It's about power and influence, life being the challenge itself. This channel is the channel of struggle. This is the gate of being a fighter. So I have a hanging gate. So I can, want to find that fighter. I can, perhaps fall into the energy of stubbornness, which I certainly can. So the shadow here is purposelessness. And I really contemplated this gate for a long time because there was an unconscious part of me that feared not having a purpose. And when I understood gate 28, which is also my gene keys, it's my unconscious sun. So it's a really big deal for me. Whereas totality is the gift and immortality is the essence. But this gate more specifically for me is about treachery, and it's also fixed in the detriment. So I tend to be in the lower vibration of this, hence why I fell into that purposelessness. So the lower vibration of this is about breaking alliances with trusted forces to align with more powerful forces, and its attendant destabilization of the whole. It's kind of I'm trying to recall if this is the gate of the pattern breaker. I believe it is. So it's an intuition of knowing whether or not it's valuable to struggle or not. It's all about struggle as well, that you kind of have to struggle in order to move through it, right? That's the game of life. We struggle. We're here to experience life, and there's struggle in life. So it's through the struggle that I come out the other side. So it's been really, really good for me to look at the purposelessness of this, to look at the lower vibration, the shadow, so that I can move into a higher vibration. Yes, it's in the detriment, but that doesn't mean that I'm stuck there. So it's a definitely a cool gate. And then gate 44. So another one of my favorites. You can see gate 44 is in my Pluto, unconscious and conscious. Pluto placement is about what we need to grow, what we're here to heal and move through. So 44 is really important for me. Also, I think I've mentioned where there's conscious and unconscious, usually where some trauma lies, past, present, I'll talk a little bit about that. So gate 44 is the gate of coming to meet, also of alertness, thinking about this as a personal manager. It's about the success of any interaction being based on having no preconditions, having no expectations. There's an aspect of instinctive memory here, right? It's about instincts, the spleen, and being alert to those instincts to help the collective. So the gift here is teamwork. It's about team. This is the channel of the entrepreneur. So more specifically for me, we'll talk about my conscious side first. Conscious is about aloofness. This is actually fixed in the higher vibration, being synergy. So the higher vibration of gate 44 for me is about a perfected renewal where I establish a new form. I create new patterns. This is about patterns, right? I talked about the pattern breaker. This is about recognizing and seeing patterns. I am here to see patterns for everyone's well-being. It's an awareness that instinctively helps a well-being, helps be well-being. So I'm consciously aware of that. I have this aloofness that helps me to see that. On the unconscious side, for me more specifically, this is about interference, the failure to interact based on circumstances. And it's so funny because why I don't act, even though I have a defined route, is because sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm interfering. There are circumstances here that give me an excuse to not come together, to meet, to establish a new pattern. It gets in the way. That interference can cause me to get stuck, to stay stuck, to not get involved in the team, to be that shadow of interference. I'm interfering, which in some ways is good because I have to wait for the invitation. But in other ways, it can be unhelpful, especially because of egos. Right? Ego can get in the way of knowing that I need to act. Someone else projects onto me. Their ego is inflating, and I say, "Oh, I'll just back off. I'm interfering." But sometimes it's good to be like, "Hey, I'm going to interfere, and we need to break this up." So that's gate 44. And then gate 48. So this is also unconscious for me. This is the gate of the well, all about depth, right? Think about a well. This does function in the now because it's a splenic gate. So it's about a foundation being needed for good. There's so much information in the pattern that there's a depth. I mean, if you work with me, if you really get to know me, I am a well of knowledge, right? I can tell you all about human design. I can tell you all about mental health. I can tell you about the DSM diagnoses. I can tell you about children, especially when it comes to mental health. I can tell you about family dynamics, structure, boundaries. Did you know that I also work with essential oils and can tell you all about that, right? And the list goes on and on and on and on because I am this well of knowledge. I have this depth in the now when it's appropriate for it to come out. The gift here is resourcefulness. So when I just love having resources, and if you're in my in-person community, most people know me as someone who always knows someone, right? I'm really struggling with this. I'm in need of this. Jen, do you know someone? Oh yeah, so-and-so, let me connect you. I'm full of resources. Resources that I give clients out often is around grief. You're struggling with grief. There's a loss. Are you familiar with the grief process? Let me give you this resource, this 4-page handout that lays it out different ways because I love giving the resources because the essence here is wisdom. And I'm not consciously aware of this, when I'm talking with you, yes, but this is an aspect that other people see in me and call out, yet I don't always call out in myself. So more specifically, this gate for me is about action. It's about taking action because the shadow here is inadequacy. So especially with my purposelessness and inadequacy, I can easily fall into that shadow, but utilizing my resources, being in my wisdom, taking action fulfills this higher vibration that I'm here, this exaltation it's called, to have that action. It's the natural urge to apply energy to action. I love taking action, and my defined route helps me. Just wait till the next part till we finish that. So yeah, this is a really cool gate and how it applies in my whole design. So I don't believe we talked about this channel. I believe we talked about that one in the last part, but let's talk about the 2644 channel because I told you that it is known as the gate of the entrepreneur, but it's actually called the channel of surrender. It has the design of a transmitter. So it connects gate 44, that gate of coming to meet, with gate 26 that we talked about in part 2, which is the gate of the taming power of the great. So we mentioned 44 is about memory. It's in our bones. It's our DNA, right? Human design comes back to science. It's all our DNA. It's the epigenetics. I mean, there's so much to it. Amino acids. It's crazy. It's crazy cool. Um, so 26 has the ability to manipulate memory to improve. But why it's called the challenge surrender is because I really have to surrender. And it's unconscious, along with this conscious and unconscious gate here that needs healing. So, like, this is huge for me. And I was just having a conversation today on Instagram about manifestation. And it's really when I'm able to surrender to my design, to life. If you're familiar with law of attraction, with mindset work, with manifestation, you know that you can't push. It's when you pull back that things start to move, right? We have to slow down to speed up. This is what this is all about. I need to surrender, to succumb to the universe of what will happen, of what is meant to be, my belief system, essentially, to be able to surrender. It's about creativity as well. This is this is on the tribal circuit. So it's really about that entrepreneur, what appeals to the tribe. That I mentioned design of a transmitter. The transmitters can replace the old with the new if they have support. So I'm here to create new patterns, to say, pardon my French here, but fuck the old shit. We need the new. Let's move into this new paradigm. The old is the old, leave it. Break those patterns, let them be. Let's develop new healthy patterns. And it's just funny because this is exactly what I always do in my work. What isn't working for you? I always ask the question, is it benefiting you? No? Leave it, toss it out. Old shit, old news. Don't need it. What do you want? What are you in control of? There's also an aspect of smell with this, which is really interesting. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday, thinking about this channel. I must have done it in a reading or something else. Because sometimes I smell the milk and I don't know if it's bad, but I'll be in a room and I'll be like, something smells off. What is that smell? So it's interesting, like how it does play out in my genes. So now let's talk about the sacral. Very similar to the sacral in the chakra system. So if you're familiar with that. So the sacral center is all about life force energy. It connects to the gut, right? It's that gut feeling, but it more so, especially in our physiological makeup, connects with our sex organs, sex drive, sex urges. It's all about our sex life, really. So if you have this defined, you're a generator or a manifesting generator. Non-sacral beings, people who don't have the sacral defined, projectors like myself, manifestors, and reflectors. So what makes us unique, and only 30% have this undefined. I'm part of 30%. 70% of the world has this defined. That's why we're still functioning in a generator society. Without it defined, let me first say, the energy here has no awareness. The spleen is an awareness center. It is aware, right? When we talk about instincts and intuition, I'm aware of that. It is happening unconsciously. But the sacral, we're not aware of. It just has raw energy that is being produced. You can kind of think about it like the Energizer Bunny. But as you know, Energizer Bunnies burn out, right? The battery can run out. So I am not the Energizer Bunny. When I lived life trying to be an Energizer Bunny, I burned out. And that was when I found human design. Human design really helped me out of a life of burnout. So because it's undefined, I have inconsistent access to that energy. I also have inconsistent access to sex drive and urges. It comes and goes. Sex isn't a primary driving force within me. Not to say, I don't enjoy sex or have a sexual drive or sex life. It's just not, I'm not someone who's like, I have to have sex every single day. It's inconsistent. It comes and goes. When my energy comes and goes, and because it's undefined, I absorb the energy of others. So when I'm with generators, I get energy. Sometimes in the morning when I'm feeling low energy, I'll vox my Nanny Jen friend and I'm like, hey, I just wanted to chat with you this morning real quick. Just wanted to say hi. Just wanted to pop in here where we share energy so that I can have a little of yours, right? You have so much to give. I just need to chat with you to absorb some of your sacral energy into my sacral so that I can do this. So we don't live in the fast lane, non-sacral beings. I don't live in the fast lane. I'm because I don't have consistent access to this life force energy. It comes in spurts or when I absorb it from others. I really had to decondition. So with an undefined sacral, it asks the question, when is enough enough? And I have practiced asking myself this question often. Is this enough? Am I done? Is my energy at its end? Is enough for right now? And a lot of times, my spleen will be like, yeah, we're done. And I'll be like, let's keep going. Whereas a generator can be like, okay, I know when enough is enough. I am done. But I don't. And especially conditioning, that's why I work 12 hours because I was in that hustle culture, hustle mentality of if I work 12 hours a day, then I will be worthy. BS. That was conditioning of the mind too, because I know my self worth. But I had to decondition my energy and know that it was okay to not function as a generator, to take rest. It's all about pacing yourself and outsourcing too, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner. Outsource. If you don't have the energy for it, if, I ask myself, is this a good use of my energy? With my defined heart, we talked about last part two, is it worth it? That's a question the defined heart, that 35% of the defined heart can ask. I say, is this worth my energy? That's a question that I say to myself so often. And I'm able to feel out yes or no. So, looking at my 3 gates here. So, starting with gate 9, the conscious gate of focus, the taming power of the small. It's really about tiny things. Focus empowers the entire process. I really need to focus on things. It also, with that detail, with the small, it's about detailed attention can help fulfill potential. Logic demands determination and continued experimentation, focusing and trying it out, detailed attention to these different things. I see a lot of people with this gate. The shadow is inertia. So not falling into just doing to doing, being stuck in that inertia that drives you. You got to get out. Determination is the gift here. That focused determination will help you be invincible. More specifically for me, gate 9 is about gratitude. Gratitude has always been huge for me. When I first learned about a gratitude practice in grad school many years ago, it resonated so deeply with me because that is that determination. More so for me, gratitude, the joy that comes from accepting small rewards and small victories. If you know me, if you've ever been in an intimate relationship with me, you know that I am all about the little things. It is these small little acts of service that overfill my cup. We'll talk about gate 27. So it's really interesting how these gates in my sacral really connect to my love languages. It's really about the moon too. 9 really connects with the moon, although it's not in my moon placement. It's just that the small things give you the right perspective. So I feel that is so true in who I am. So gate 27. I love this gate. It's so important to talk about, just as important as gate 10. Gate 27 is the gate of nourishing, of caring, that we have to care for one another. It's tribal. It's about protection, preserving the unit. It's about win-win, making everything a win-win. I love a win-win situation. That's what I say to my dog too, because her name's Winnie. Win-win situation. It's about body and spirit being at our strongest. It connects to the spleen. I have this hanging gate, of course, but it's really about nourishing. It's not about selfishness. It's so important for me too, and in my emotions and how I move, because it's my unconscious earth. It's really, really important for me. And important that I don't fall into selfishness, that I utilize the gift of altruism and work towards selflessness. More specifically for me, this is about being an executor, executing the ability to distribute effectively resources. Can do it wonderfully, unconscious. Other people see it in me, but it was understanding this gate that I said, oh, yes, I do that. Give me a bunch of resources. And being a projector, I can efficiently see where they're needed, especially the small details, right? You're seeing it come together to execute where things need to go. The other huge part about this gate is that you have to pour from an overflowing cup. Now, this can be easy for me. Of course, I can, absorb some conditioning. That's why it's so important to lay horizontal. Non-sacral beings lay horizontal, flat on the ground to release that sacral energy. Best tip I've learned, and one of the best tips I can share. But gate 27, pour from an overflowing cup. I have to fill up my cup for myself, which for me is kind of easy because I have conscious gate 10. I know that I have to take care of myself and all that love and self-love. I have to overflow my cup so that I can use the overflow to help others. Otherwise, we burn out. So that is so, so huge. So look at your chart, see if you have gate 27, see how that applies, or connect, comment below, sign up for a reading with me. I would love all of that. So lastly, gate 42. This is the gate of growth, of increase, right? We've been talking about small details now. This is about the big thing. This is the grail, the experience, expanding through resources that maximize the development of full potential, completing a cycle. It's all about the completion, to grow. We complete that cycle, we increase and grow. It's the heart of growth. And the shadow is expectation. And as hopefully you know by now, I need to expect the unexpected. That is my incarnation cross. So with expectation being this shadow, with this being a conscious and unconscious gate for me, right? We see it right here. So it's so important for me to detach from an outcome and also celebrate. The essence is celebration. So I have been bringing so much celebration into my life for myself, for others, for clients. My clients, when we do a session together, we often start with celebrations. What are your wins from the week? What are you celebrating that you've achieved, that you've done, that you can see all those things? It also appears twice in my gene key sequence. So like 42 is really, really big for me. Consciously, it's specifically about identification for me, recognizing trends, right? Again, that pattern for growth, participating in trends to grow. Unconsciously, it's about trial and error. 3-5, tell me about it. I'm very, very familiar with that. And of course, unconscious, it's on the 3 line. So that's why it's kind of more of that trial and error. In times of increase, mistakes are a natural part of the process, right? We grow, we evolve, we're going to make mistakes and learn. So I really need to apply my 3-5 there. So, right, we're starting to see how my design all comes together. So that's it for part 3. I will be back soon for part 4. Catch it either right here or later on. And if you're curious, reach out. I would love to connect with you and see how we might be able to work together, or I love chatting about human design, obviously. So check out my website and definitely comment below, and I'll see you soon.